Following from that issue in Rivers State, one day after President Bola Tinubu granted a posthumous pardon to environmental activist Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others executed in 1995, Ogoni youths and stakeholders staged a symbolic march in Port Harcourt to express their gratitude. Well, the march, which began near the Air Force Base and moved through Ken Saro-Wiwa Road, attracted participants from the Joint Representative Council, various Ogoni kingdoms, and members of the diaspora. It culminated at the headquarters of the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP.
Now, the group submitted a resolution thanking the president for granting the pardon and conferring national honors on the late activists. They also hailed the president's renewed commitment to the environmental cleanup and livelihood restoration in Ogoni land, being implemented under the Ministry of Environment through HYPREP. Ledogo Amibu, chairman of the JRC and convener of the march, alongside Terry Bagia of the Ogoni Brain Trust Foundation, praised improvements in livelihood projects and ongoing remediation efforts across the region.
Mr. President, His Excellency Bola Tinubu, GCFRO, for walking his talk. We thank him for showing exemplary commitment to the right ones of the past by granting presidential pardon and conferring national honors to beautify the memories and sacrifice of our Sarge, Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others, together with Barrister Ledumite, their own soul lone survivor. Thank you once again, Mr. President, for continuous confidence, commitment to the success of the Ogoni cleanup exercise by the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP, and their ambitious project and program dotting across Ogoni landscape for environmental and livelihood restoration.
Those that are still confused about what it means to pardon our great fallen heroes. Some people are using the word exoneration. It is a word that is unknown to Nigerian law. Exoneration is not in any law written in this country, including the Constitution. The Constitution permits the president of the nation that where he finds necessary, like he has done in this case, because he was part of this struggle, and he knows that these people were innocently slaughtered, broad daylight, for what they did not do.
Well, joining us now is Fegalo Nsuke, president of Movement for the Survival of Ogoni People, otherwise referred to as MOSOP. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Port Harcourt there. Well, first off, let me get your thoughts on, the presidential pardon granted the Ogoni 9 by President Bola Tinubu, and of course the national honors, conferred on them. Do you think it goes far enough, or are you of the mind too that it shouldn't necessarily be a pardon but an exoneration?
Well, first of all, I like to say that the decision of Mr. President is historic. Since this incident happened in 1995, November 10, no leader, no administrator of Nigeria has gone this far. I mean, in respect of acknowledging the wrongs that took place in Ogoni, and especially acknowledging that the execution shouldn't have taken place in the first instance. So, first of all, we must appreciate the goodwill of Mr. President. We must appreciate the fact that Mr. President acknowledges that Nigeria was wrong in going ahead with that execution. But we also want the president to go a bit further, because when you talk about a pardon, it implies that there was a legitimate crime and a legitimate conviction. But we all know that the trial of Ken Saro-Wiwa was flawed. In fact, and we insist in MOSOP that the decision to kill Ken Saro-Wiwa was taken before the so-called tribunal was even constituted. So first of all, what we are talking about here is let the truth be known. Mr. President has admitted that something went wrong. We want this stain of injustice to be removed from Mr. Ken Saro-Wiwa. And what that implies is that Mr. President will need to go further to review the circumstances of that entire conviction, the trial, the proceedings of the tribunal, because we want it established. We don't want to go back home and celebrate and agree that an innocent man is being pardoned. Because the big question is, for what reason is he being pardoned? Is he being pardoned because he was a murderer? And that's not true. So what we want to say is, yes, we appreciate Mr. President's goodwill, but we want this stain of injustice around the Ogoni 9 to be removed. So we still have a little bit of work to do, or let me say we still have some much work to do, because yes, we have agreed that some injustice was done, but we must clear his name. Knowing that he was innocent, we need to go a bit further to clear the name of these 9.
That's process look like? Because you're calling for a judicial review of a military tribunal led by Justice Auta. Tell us, what exactly would that process look like, and what exactly it is you're asking the government to do? But I also like you to react, because there have been mixed reactions to Mr. President's decision, which you describe as courageous. The families of the Ogoni 4 have also been speaking. They say the national honor on the Ogoni 9 is welcome. However, they don't think an exoneration should take place, because the Ogoni 4 were killed and there's no mention of them. They believe they're not getting justice. How do you react to that?
Yes, and that actually makes it imperative that we should go back into looking at what happened. It's important that we should know the truth about how the 4 died and the entire proceedings that led to the execution of the 9, because the entire process was flawed. So we should be talking about the truth. In some cases, you can call it a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, you can call it a Judicial Commissioner Inquiry, you can call it any name. But the fact is that people died. We need to know the truth about what happened. It's not enough for us to just go back home and say Ken Saro was convicted for murder and was pardoned. So we should accept that he was a murderer, and that's not true. Mr. President's speech, of course, acknowledges the fact that some injustice was done. So we need to remove that stain of injustice from all of these processes. We equally need to know how the 4 died, because I can tell you there were a whole lot of irregularities in the entire trial, and in fact you can see that there was a mindset in the whole thing. The judgment that condemned Ken Saro gave him a window of 30 days to appeal. He was killed 10 days later. He was not even given even the judgment that said you can appeal, he was not even given the right of appeal. He was killed 10 days later. And that is why I can say that, look, the decision to kill Ken Saro is something that was taken even before the tribunal was set up. The entire thing was just to kill Ken Saro. It's just unfortunate that 8 others became victims of the process. So we should go into the truth. We should go into the truth so that we can actually uncover whether or not the execution itself was justifiable. Because looking at the report of the UN Secretary General's fact-finding mission to Nigeria, they acknowledged that Nigeria did not follow due process. Nigeria was wrong. The report of the ECOWAS Human Rights Commission did acknowledge that Nigeria was wrong in that execution. In fact, the UN fact-finding team did say that Nigeria did not even follow its own laws in conducting that execution, So we just need to go back to look at the truth and tell ourselves the truth and apologize where we need to. And then we can now see that, yes, justice is served. We'll move on with that. We can't bring back the dead. That's a fact. Yeah. But at least we can know the truth about what happened.
Absolutely. And truth, like they say, is an open wound. Or is it conscience, an open wound? Only truth can heal it. Now, do you think with this pardon and hopefully that panel that you call for eventually is set up and the truth eventually emerges, do you think that even goes far enough in healing the pain that the Ogoni people bear since the execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa? Would you say in addition to that, there is a need for some kind of compensation?
Well, this evening I received a statement from the family of late Mr. Ken Saro-Wiwa, signed by his daughter, No, and they did make that same demand. And I think that what everyone wants to see is that the public should know the truth about how these men were executed and how the four died. I think that taking that step will at least permanently lay this whole thing to rest. People will feel a sense of healing. Yeah. At least we will be able to know that our fathers, our brothers, our compatriots have been freed from, the chains of that injustice have been removed from them. We cannot bring them back to life, but we will feel some sense of healing if that's done. And the families share these ideals. So I think it's the right thing, it's a proper thing to do. That's also the position of MOSOP on this issue. Yes, we appreciate the honors, we appreciate the pardon, the chains are broken. However, we will need to know the truth. We need to go a bit further to uncover the truth about how some of these things happen, because people need to be healed. Okay. Yes.
Indeed, the nation needs to heal. But this story cannot be separated from the environmental devastation linked to oil extraction in Ogoni land. Nearly 30 years on, can you tell us how much has changed, how much progress has truly been made, and where the burden lies?
Did you hear that question? Looks like we've lost connection with Nsuke. Hopefully we can reconnect. Otherwise, we might have to say thank you at this point for joining us on Newsnight. And really an important point to raise there, this one, as to whether much really has changed, 30 years on. The environmental concerns in Ogoni land, every now and again we hear about, Ogoni cleanup and what have you, all kinds of projects are put in place to clean up Ogoni land. But then again, at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. But, all of this, for those who may not know why the Ogoni 9, where we're even discussing them today, there was the opposition by Ken Saro-Wiwa and the Ogoni 8 to the operating practices of the Royal Dutch Shell Oil Corporation in the Niger Delta region and all the environmental impact that oil exploration has had in that part of the country, in the Niger Delta region. According to Nsuke, he believes that, all of the drama was contrived just to get Ken Saro-Wiwa out of the way. And I'm wondering, why would any government, for that matter, want to take out a Nigerian who's calling for justice, and not just for himself and his people?
Nsuke back.
Nsuke is back.
Nsuke, let me just reiterate my question, because we lost connection with you for a bit there. I was asking you that at the heart of this is the environmental degradation as a result of the oil extraction in the region, Niger Delta and Ogoni in particular. 30 years or over 3 decades after, what has really changed? Has there been any progress? And if not, where does the burden lie?
Well, the truth about it is that there hasn't been much. We spent approximately $1 billion on the cleanup program. And as at this minute that we're talking, Ogoni does not have water to drink. So you ask yourself, what are they doing? Because water was specifically stated as an emergency. So one of the things that they were supposed to address immediately was to deal with the water crisis. They never did that. And I at the time they were starting this cleanup program, I was publicity secretary of MOSOP. And I did raise this issue. I said, look, we needed to get the structures of this cleanup in place, and we needed to deal with the emergencies first. And they rushed into awarding contracts for cleanup. And I said, these guys are running to award contracts. I mean, they are rushing into awarding contracts because of money. They said, no, that's not the issue. We cannot wait until, we deal with all of the structures. But the structures were fundamental to get the cleanup to work. Because one of the things that was required is that the Center of Excellence should be in place. And the Center of Excellence is supposed to be a training center. There was also the requirement for an integrated soil management center to be in place. And the integrated soil management center was to serve like a laboratory. We didn't have all of those. $1 billion gone. We've not gotten water. We've not. I can say that the entire cleanup thing, what they've done more is a cover-up. It's just unfortunate. We requested an audit of the entire process. The former president Muhammadu Buhari ordered an audit. Till this minute, we've not seen the report of that audit. So I can say not much has changed. But what I can say has changed is that there hasn't been much of fresh pollution. That's a fact. Because there is no activity, oil drilling activity in Ogoni, so pollution had been less. That's true. But in terms of cleanup, there is no verifiable evidence to show that we've made much progress on that.
It's really difficult to wrap one's mind around that, because there have been different, plans and attempts to clean up Ogoni land. Are you saying that no cleanup has happened, in spite of the fact that you say fresh pollution really has not happened?
No, I wouldn't say there has been no activity. There has been activity.
Right.
There has been activity, but it's not commensurate with the kind of money that has been spent. In fact, very lately you observe that the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project, which is the cleanup agency that's supposed to be handling the entire exercise, has practically turned into a Ministry of Education awarding scholarships for people to study overseas and all of that. When people don't have water, they're facing scholarship for education. I don't know if they don't understand, their mandate. They say, go and implement the UNEP report and restore the environment. And you are awarding scholarships for people to go and study piloting. I don't know what that means, because they are not supposed to be a Ministry of Education. They're not supposed to be a scholarship board. They're supposed to be a clean-up agency.
Paint for us very quickly before we let you go.
That is why we
yes. Before we let you go, paint for us. You say not much has changed, but paint for us. What's the livelihood like in Ogoni land right now as we speak? Environmentally, life generally in Ogoni land. What does it feel like?
Things aren't really very good, because one, there isn't electricity in Ogoni. And without electricity, you cannot power entrepreneurship. And without entrepreneurship, you can create jobs. So I can say that things are not really very good in Ogoni. We don't have companies, we don't have all of that. So life is not so easy in Ogoni.
You have described what you call surreptitious moves to resume oil drilling in Ogoni land. What is that non-negotiable condition that Mosopu put up for drilling to resume in Ogoni land? Somebody described to me what's happening in Ogoni land as the power of the people to resist, what the government has been doing to them. No drilling since 1993, I'm told. Do you think that drilling can ever resume, and what would be that condition you put forward to the government?
Yeah, nothing is non-negotiable. Everything is negotiable. But the fact is that we just need to get it right. The people power this process, led by the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. And so we were the ones that championed this struggle. We got Shell out of the way. And when after doing that, we were willing to do the negotiation. We engaged the government and talked about this thing. We said, look, we are willing to get this thing done, but we want it negotiated.
In 20 seconds.
We haven't seen that negotiation.
Great. In 20 seconds, because we need to go, you've put forward the Ogoni Development Authority. Tell us what this initiative is about and what you hope to achieve with it.
The Ogoni Development Authority, ODA, was a proposal of the movement for the survival of Ogoni people after we met with all Ogoni villages and kingdoms and all of that. And we resolved that basically the demand is that 20% of the profits, not equity, of profit that is made by an operator who is in Ogoni, not the government. You know, there is this partnership. It's a partnership between the government and the operator. Government, we do not place any obligation on government. But what we said is that the operator should dedicate 20% of his profit to drive development in Ogoni. That is what the ODA basically is all about. And then we can design how that money is being implemented. Because we don't want a situation where you make all of this money and it ends up in people's pocket, like, you know, like we've been seeing in several cases.
You can say that again. Fegalo Nsuke Mosop, thank you very much for joining us on News.